6 sets of body part twice a week. It's about all most lifters can recover from. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. Quick reminder, if you guys would please click like down below. It'd be greatly appreciated if you would follow or subscribe to me if you aren't yet. I would appreciate that also. And please drop me a comment down below. Thank you so much. All right, so over on this topic of recovery, again, context, not necessarily when we're running conjugate and you're having to program your max and speed work. We're talking just overall hypertrophy training, things like that. Again, this is not specific to powerlifting programming. We're just talking general training, general hypertrophy, getting big, getting jacked, getting in shape. All right, so what that essentially means when I say that, I'm just telling you in my experience, the majority of lifters are not going to recover from anything beyond that. And in fact, it may start to impede your growth. And I do say the 6 twice a week because, I mean, we can talk about 9 or 12 sets once a week, even 15 in some cases, if you're going to do a body part split once a week, and that can absolutely be viable. I program tons and tons of upper, lower, double frequency type training, tons of like 3-day push-pull legs for people, for different clients over the years, depending upon kind of what their needs are, what they want, what they're trying to specialize in. But if we're going to talk just a general hypertrophy, you know, usually like a 4-day upper lower type thing works really, really well. It's time proven, it's effective. But when we start talking about total sets, what we start to find when you start exceeding about 6 sets in a workout, performance absolutely degrades. And this is the biggest problem we run into with the body part split. Even in my very, very successful clients on those body part splits, you know, that upper threshold for most of them, if they're not on drugs, you guys will notice they almost never go over about 9 or 10 sets. Just something I want to note, that if you guys look at some of the vlogs and stuff for my actual natural guys, I rarely go over that. If we're doing like a 3-day or a 4-day split, like a push-pull legs, I just don't go over that unless they're just exceptionally high in their work capacity, their recovery, their lifestyle. So generally though, what we start to find, usually after about 6 sets, performance does start to degrade. So when performance starts to degrade, we are getting very, very little training stimulus. Not saying zero. Let me be clear. We do not mean zero. But if you're pushing really hard, you know, junk volume can start to accumulate very easily after that. Now, particularly when we're doing more than one muscle group in there, you start doing an upper lower. Yeah, absolutely. So what I find though, this sort of setup, like if you're going to do a muscle twice a week, like 6 sets is really kind of almost the upper threshold. Like I'm not even talking about minimums. Dude, the 3 works actually decently well, right? If it's hard, serious sets. But I think I should also clarify what I mean by sets here, because people are like, only 6 sets. What are we talking about? I'm saying that on most of your big compounds, unless they are truly, really, really effectively hitting multiple muscles, counting just one muscle. So when I do say that, so the same thing if I talk about 3. In other words, a nice, decently wide grip bench press, we might only be counting it as a chest exercise. Makes sense? Dips, man, dips are hard to call. I like to almost throw dips into both chest and triceps. I really do. It's hard not to. So I can make exceptions for something like that. Same thing with a squat. You can probably count a squat as a quad and a glute. You know, realistically speaking, but generally most of your compounds are just counting one muscle. So in other words, an overhead press, we're probably just going to count it for delts, right? A row, I'm only going to count it for lats and traps maybe, right? I'm definitely going to count traps. A pull-up, just lats. A chin-up, I'd give it biceps and lats. So what you really have to look at when we're looking at that is case by case of realistically how much load and stimulus is that muscle really getting from that exercise. You know, I mean, we could even say on the bench, you could still count maybe the lateral tricep. I just wouldn't count it towards the long head volume. So when we talk about 6 sets twice a week in that context, meaning if you're only really not counting the bench towards lateral tricep or long head of the tricep, you know, we're not counting overhead pressing towards triceps or upper chest, so on and so forth. right? We're not counting pull-ups or rows for biceps. This is the context in which I talk about 6 sets. So realistically, I think when you start factoring in potential splash over, 6 sets twice a week is a lot, because that means 12 sets, 12 total sets for the week, on a 3 to 4 day frequency, to where that muscle is the primary mover, not a major secondary, but the primary. Well, that's definitely a lot of volume. So when we say that, people are thinking it's not a lot of volume, but it really and truly is. Okay, it is a lot of volume. So, I mean, example, like let's say you do count the dip as both. So you're talking about doing a flat bench or an incline 3 sets twice a week, plus a dip for 3 sets twice a week, plus a tricep extension, like a laying extension or a rope press down, okay, for 3 sets twice a week. So in that case, now we're up to 12 sets for chest, 12 sets for tricep. But there's a lot of secondary stress. Okay, those muscles are still being worked with other movements. So that we do have a context for that. I mean, long head of the tricep is still going to get hit on a pull-up. Okay, would we count it towards that volume? No. But when you really start looking at that volume closely, we're getting tons of volume. That is actually really high volume training if a lot of compounds are being used. If over half your exercises are compound movements, that's a lot. Really is. I mean, the same thing, we start talking deadlifts and squats. What if we're only counting the deadlift towards the hamstrings in terms of the lower body? We're only counting the squat towards the quads, and glutes. So what happens if we throw a leg press in, or a hamstring curl, or a reverse hyper? You see what I mean in terms of that overlap of volume? Are we going to pretend there's no stimulus to the quads from a conventional deadlift done for 3 sets? I don't think so. And that's really a ton of volume for the glutes. Any way you break that down, I mean, we're potentially doing over 20 sets for glutes. That's a lot of volume, guys. So when I make those statements, that is really, for a drug-free lifter, we're at the upper thresholds. And if you're trying to do more than that, very, very few of you are going to want to make progress from it. Very few of you are going to be able to fully recover from it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying most of you won't if you're actually training hard. We're at the upper thresholds. Like I could take, using that same rule, we could take that down to 3 sets twice a week, and most guys would make really good gains if we're only counting, like a dip towards the pecs or the bench towards the pecs and so on. Okay. All right, guys. But that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.